Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, we dive into another chilling true crime. And according to psychologists, teenagers most often cross the line for three dark reasons: the burning need to prove themselves and gain power among their peers, falling into alcohol abuse or illegal drugs, but most dangerously, a sense of untouchable impunity, even when it comes to the most brutal crimes. Minors often walk away with minimal punishment, simply because their young age shields them. In today's story, a schoolgirl named McKenzie Shirilla turned into the mastermind of a deadly tragedy that claimed two innocent lives at once. However, this girl felt no remorse for the horror she caused, and inside the courtroom, she boldly claimed she could do almost anything and still come out alive. Though she insisted she wasn't trying to be cool, McKenzie twisted her testimony again and again, blaming it all on a so-called memory lapse. And until the very last moment, she seemed convinced she'd walk away free. But the judge's verdict struck like lightning, leaving both the young criminal and her mother desperately defending her in stunned silence. So let's uncover the dark truth. Who really is McKenzie Shirilla? McKenzie Shirilla was born in August 2004. In the quiet, unsuspecting town of Strongsville, Ohio, the third child in her family. Her parents, John Shirilla and Natalie Stevens, tried to raise their children with love and care, to provide good education and encourage their every ambition. The youngest daughter quickly became the family favorite. Her pranks were forgiven again and again. Even serious misbehavior was overlooked. She often got away with it and grew capricious in turn. A demanding, selfish young girl, accustomed to her parents, always bending to her will, and certain that no matter what she did, she would face no real consequences. Classmates and teachers recalled that, as a child, she was open and even likable. But with age, her character and behavior started to spiral downward. The girl erupted in full-blown tantrums. If things didn't go her way, she lost her temper instantly. Acting bold, brash, and impatient, she cursed and could even pick a fight. McKenzie cared for no one's opinion but her own. Her word had to be the last, no exceptions, and she always placed her own interests above all else. In adolescence, her personality became downright unbearable, but her parents refused to see it as serious, thinking it was just a phase of growing up, and that she deserved patience and tolerance. However, the truth was darker. Her bad temper was far from the worst of the problems. In high school, McKenzie sank into alcohol addiction and even experimented with illegal drugs, yet she constantly slipped away from consequences. Her behavior grew reckless and dangerously threatening, not just to herself but to everyone around her. Her parents still turned a blind eye, or maybe simply chose not to see the glaring problem unfolding before them. Like many teens, McKenzie was obsessed with social media. Her smartphone never left her hands, not even for a moment. She flaunted provocative photos of herself, drinking or smoking, for everyone to see online. And her captions and comments were just as provocative. Her closest friends mirrored her lifestyle. Together, they vandalized, staged brawls, and caused chaos, sometimes even stole, drawing the attention of the police more than once. However, authorities let them off with nothing more than warnings and a few educational talks, which only fed their belief that they were untouchable. Dominic Russo, a young man from Strongsville, was also born and raised in the town. He entered the world in September 2001, the fourth of 7 children in his family. Born to Frank and Christine Russo, he grew up surrounded by 3 brothers and 3 sisters with whom he shared a tight bond. From childhood, Dominic excelled in his studies. He was active in sports and constantly pursued a healthy lifestyle. Despite being part of a large and busy family, neither he nor any of his brothers or sisters ever lacked love. Parental attention and care surrounded them all. Every child was cherished. Frank and Christine, the devoted parents, were moderately strict in raising their children. But at the same time, they encouraged full and balanced development. Dominic was never short of friends. He thrived in the spotlight of any gathering, quickly becoming the soul of the company. The young man possessed a bright aura and an undeniably attractive appearance. He was fit, charismatic, and engaging, which drew many admirers from an early age. Yet Dominic deliberately avoided shallow romances, focusing only on serious and meaningful relationships. After finishing high school, Russo enrolled in a local university, choosing to specialize as a producer of performing arts. His dream was to tie his life to music, and one day rise as a renowned music producer, talented and versatile beyond measure. Dominic even wrote and performed his own songs. By the age of 20, the young man had already built a small business. He bought his own car and rented a separate apartment in a good neighborhood, while still actively pursuing sports and earning a reputation as one of the best students. At the university, his first great love story began. Dominic and McKenzie crossed paths for the first time when she was in her senior year of high school. They met at a lively party among a group of mutual friends, and this seemingly random meeting proved fateful for both of them. The two were complete opposites in every way, and as they say, opposites attract. Dominic, handsome with his curly hair and deeply immersed in music, immediately caught McKenzie's attention. He stood apart from the reckless boys she usually surrounded herself with. He was educated, well-mannered, genuinely interesting, and could hold a captivating conversation on any topic. McKenzie, with her striking looks and slender figure, dressed stylishly and knew how to impress. She turned on all her charm. She used all her charm to catch the eye of the guy she wanted, and she succeeded in winning his attention surprisingly fast. By the fall of 2021, the two officially became a couple almost overnight. Each proudly introduced their chosen one to their families, but while McKenzie's parents adored her choice and saw Dominic as the perfect match for their daughter, Dominic's parents were not entirely convinced about her. On the surface, she seemed sweet, innocent, and eager to leave a good impression, but deep down, something about her unsettled Frank and Christine Russo from the start. Still, friends and relatives of McKenzie were convinced that this time she had truly fallen in love, and they sincerely hoped that Dominic would change her for the better, softening her temper and improving her behavior. No one could have imagined then that this young romance would end in tragedy. Soon, the couple was inseparable in public, always holding hands and openly showing affection wherever they went. Before long, the entire small town knew about their relationship. Those who truly knew McKenzie quietly pitied her unsuspecting boyfriend, while most others simply felt happy for them. But beneath the surface, something was off. Dominic began to notice strange patterns in McKenzie's behavior, her reckless outbursts, and constant urge to bend others to her will, demanding that everything be done her way. At first, Dominic brushed it aside, blaming it on youth and immaturity, or simply her craving for attention. Still, the couple dreamed about a future together, even talking about marriage. As soon as McKenzie turned 18, they planned to leave their small hometown behind and move to a big city to chase their dreams. New York was their ultimate destination, where Dominic could find endless opportunities to build a shining career in music and finally unleash his true talent. But as time passed, McKenzie's behavior grew darker and more disturbing. At times, it even frightened Dominic himself. She demanded from her boyfriend absolute obedience to her will, and if he dared to disagree, she exploded with tantrums and public scandals, acting like a spoiled and capricious child. At first, Dominic tried to laugh it off and joke, but soon realized that this was her real face behind the mask. In public, she still tried to keep it together, but when alone with him, she unleashed storms of rage and emotion, sometimes even lashing out physically with her fists. McKenzie's aggression only kept escalating, and eventually, Dominic reached the breaking point. He suggested they take a pause in their relationship to sort out her feelings, but hearing this, McKenzie caused a shocking scene, screaming at him in front of their friends. She shouted threats at Dominic, swearing she would kill him if he left, even threatening to burn his house and wreck his car. Ironically, her threats only convinced Dominic further that he was making the right decision by walking away from this toxic relationship. But McKenzie turned to obsession. She had no intention of letting Dominic go. At first, she acted as if nothing had changed, still calling him constantly, inviting him to parties and random events, and posting photos of them together on social media, decorating them with long declarations of love. But when Dominic firmly said it was over, McKenzie snapped, consumed by rage and fury. She began showing up at his house daily, screaming insults beneath his window, hurling threats and curses into the night. She bombarded him with calls, left voicemails filled with anger, wrote endlessly on social media and email. One moment, swearing eternal love, begging to start over from scratch. The next moment, raining down insults and threats. Dominic was left confused and shaken. He no longer knew how to handle such unhinged behavior, because Dominic had never faced behavior like this before. He tried talking, then ignoring, even distancing himself, and more than once. He recorded her violent outbursts and threats on his phone. Things escalated to the point where Shirilla, spotting her ex on the street, or in any public place, would scream at him and hurl insults before strangers. She turned Dominic's life into a waking nightmare, yet he still clung to the hope that with time, she would finally let him go and shift her obsession onto someone else instead. McKenzie once even declared in front of witnesses that it would be easier to kill Dominic than to ever let him walk away from her. She vowed that if he didn't come back, no one else would ever have him make sure of it. Dominic dismissed it as drama, but those around realized she wasn't joking. Among her most chilling threats were violent promises to run him down with a car and leave him broken, or to trap him inside and drive off a cliff, even to stop on the tracks in front of a speeding train. Each horrifying scenario more detailed than the last, as if she had been planning it carefully all along and was only waiting for the right moment to strike, biding her time with chilling patience. Then came an unexpected reconciliation. Realizing threats and insults pushed him further away, McKenzie suddenly switched tactics. No more screaming, no more pressure. Instead, she played the role of a changed girl. She acted sweet, gentle, and charming again, dropping the harassment and obsessive calls, pretending to have realized her mistakes, and wanting to transform for the better. She spoke of college plans and a new future, asking Dominic for help with university choices, claiming she had matured and grown wiser, focusing now only on her final exams. These sudden changes left Dominic surprised and cautiously hopeful she was truly improving, because despite everything, he still carried tender feelings for her inside. So out of kindness, he agreed to help with her enrollment plans, and slowly, the two began seeing each other and talking again. Gradually, the couple started getting close once more. Dominic invited McKenzie out on dates again, eager to spend every spare moment with her, convinced that she had truly changed, matured, grown serious, and more responsible. He didn't notice how quickly he fell for her again, with all past wrongs fading into the background, buried somewhere in the past. However, this time, the young couple avoided big announcements, keeping it quiet from friends and acquaintances. Their reunion remained a secret. Their meetings resembled hidden rendezvous, where they enjoyed each other in secrecy, away from the curious eyes of the town. When Dominic's brother Angelo eventually learned what was happening, he warned that nothing good could come of it. But Dominic, blinded by love, ignored him. A devious plan was taking shape, while Dominic naively rejoiced at their reunion and her change. McKenzie, behind his back, was hatching a chilling plan, plotting a terrifying act of revenge directed squarely at Dominic. She became obsessed with the idea of a car and the deadly spectacle of a crash, carefully sketching out her scenario in detail. In her free time, she drove aimlessly through the city streets, searching for the perfect spot, a place where her sinister plan could unfold, but with no steep cliffs nearby to exploit, and stalling on train tracks feeling too risky. She sought another way, until one day, fate delivered her an idea. McKenzie drove into a lonely industrial zone, an isolated place with no cameras and little traffic, where she stumbled upon something chilling. A massive, immovable brick wall, standing cold and silent. And instantly her twisted mind envisioned a new plan, just as horrific, but far more achievable. She decided she would floor the gas pedal and smash straight into the wall, A crash she imagined as spectacular, as plunging from a cliff into the abyss. It should be noted, at first, McKenzie planned to die there with her lover. Their story spread like wildfire across the city, until everyone was whispering about it. She even told her closest friend, but that friend just smiled faintly, not believing a single word was serious, because McKenzie had dreamed up wild ideas like this before, but they always stayed as idle talk. This time was different. The horrifying plan was real, and an unexpected victim would soon appear. At the end of July 2022, just a week before her 18th birthday, McKenzie suggested to Dominic that they go to an upcoming party hosted by their mutual friends. A perfect chance to have fun, to unwind together, and to show everyone they were back in love, that their romance was alive again. Dominic eagerly agreed. He still sensed no danger from McKenzie and believed in her sincerity and her intentions. The party was set for Saturday, July 30th. That night, Dominic and McKenzie walked in hand and instantly stole everyone's attention. They looked radiant, smiling wide, openly showing their affection. Friends were thrilled to see them reunited. They called them the perfect couple that night. Beautiful, harmonious, almost unreal. The entire evening and deep into the night, they laughed and partied, snapping photos without hesitation, stealing kisses in front of everyone. But no one could imagine how this celebration would end in tragedy. Like everyone else, they had a few drinks. But McKenzie secretly did more. She took a hit of illegal drugs. For courage, as she called it, to keep from backing out at the last second, to silence any doubts in her mind, and make sure nothing would stop her plan. By morning, Russo and Cheryl said their goodbyes and headed toward the car, but then Dominic's friend, Davian Flanagan, followed and asked for a ride home. McKenzie tried to protest, claiming they already had plans of their own, but Dominic saw no harm in giving his friend a lift, not wanting to argue, raise suspicion, or ruin the night. McKenzie agreed, signing Davian's death sentence. Despite her boyfriend's unease, McKenzie slid behind the wheel. Dominic settled in the passenger seat beside her, and their friend took the spot behind him. The engine roared to life, and the car rolled away from the glowing party lights, heading off on what would be its final ride down the main street. McKenzie drove calmly, sticking to the speed limit, acting like everything was perfectly normal. At a lonely stoplight, she hit the brakes. Even though the road was empty, her mind churned over the plan one last time, while her passengers drifted half asleep. Later, she would claim that she intended to die in the crash, but that was an obvious lie, because she quietly buckled her seatbelt, while her two passengers stayed unstrapped, blissfully unaware of what was coming. When the light flicked green, she hit the gas, the car surging forward. Then she yanked the wheel hard, veering onto a dark, deserted side road, leading straight into an industrial wasteland. Clearly, the two men had no idea what was unfolding. Not yet. It was as if the devil himself had seized the wheel. The speedometer climbed to its limit, but McKenzie kept pressing harder, aiming straight for a solid brick wall. A silent street. A deadly collision. The industrial zone was a ghost town. In the early Sunday hours, no one saw the crash or rushed to help, except for one woman living on the outskirts. Not far from the crash site, she heard the thunderous bang and stepped outside. Curious and uneasy, smoke curled into the night as she approached, until the twisted wreck came into view. Horrified, she dashed back home to call emergency services. Medics raced toward the scene. About 30 minutes passed after the crash, but for the two men in the car, it was already too late. They died instantly at the scene. The only survivor was the girl behind the wheel, saved by her seatbelt and the airbags that exploded on impact. McKenzie lay unconscious, her legs crushed and pinned inside the twisted metal, but she was still breathing, and her pulse throbbed faintly beneath the rescuer's fingers, giving a fragile hope that she might live. She fluttered her eyes open several times, while firefighters struggled to cut her free from the wreckage. But clearly, she had no idea what was happening around her. McKenzie was rushed straight to the hospital, where doctors found multiple fractures and severe internal injuries. Blood tests revealed a shocking detail. She was high on alcohol and drugs as well. However, according to her doctor, those substances might have ironically saved her life by dulling the pain and keeping her from going into shock. Investigation leads and a confession no one expected. At first, the police, after seeing McKenzie's toxicology report, assumed the simplest explanation, that she was so intoxicated she didn't know what she was doing, and either tried to drive through the wall deliberately or simply didn't see it looming ahead. Supporting this theory was one chilling fact. There were no skid marks at the scene, not even a hint of braking. Investigators couldn't question McKenzie herself because she lay unconscious in intensive care after a grueling surgery that saved her life. But soon, she regained consciousness, and when the truth sank in, she broke down in tears, pouring out her dark secret to the on-duty doctor. She confessed she had aimed for that wall on purpose, at full speed, because she wanted to kill her boyfriend and had planned to die right alongside him. McKenzie then added, trembling, that Davian was never part of the plan. He became an accidental victim of his own insistence because he begged to join them. The doctor, stunned, didn't believe a single word, writing it off as the delirium of a broken mind. The doctor assumed her words were nothing more than a fog of anesthesia, mixed with painkillers and crushing guilt over the death of someone she loved. And then, when police were finally allowed to speak with the recovering girl, McKenzie flipped her story completely, like nothing had ever happened. Now McKenzie claimed she remembered almost nothing. Blaming the haze of alcohol and illegal substances, she insisted that the night was a blank in her memory. After the moment, she slid behind the wheel. As for how Davian ended up in the car, she claimed she had no idea. However, the facts told a very different story, and the truth was impossible to deny. Surveillance cameras captured the first stretch of McKenzie's route that night. The footage showed something chilling. McKenzie driving calmly, slowly, following every rule, until suddenly, without warning, she veered onto a lonely road leading straight to an industrial zone. A road with nothing but dead ends. And then came the shocking discovery. McKenzie had driven that same route before, multiple times days before the crash. Her car had been spotted there again and again, witnessed by at least a dozen people. Back to normal, or so it seemed after leaving the hospital, McKenzie healed quickly and slipped back into her old life, acting as if nothing had ever happened. She showed no trace of remorse, not even a shadow, and she believed deep down that she could get away with it. Soon, her social media lit up once again. Photos with friends, carefree laughter, and future plans. Then came September. She set her sights on a concert by her favorite band, playing in a neighboring city. At that time, the bones in her legs hadn't even fully healed. But that didn't stop her for a second. She rolled into that concert in a wheelchair like a star on stage, wearing bold makeup and an even bolder smile, dressed to turn heads, snapping selfies with friends, and flooding her account with them. By October, McKenzie was back on her feet literally and off to a Halloween celebration, showing up in a store-bought costume, living life to the fullest, like nothing happened, even making new friends along the way. But on November 4th, 2022, everything came crashing down. She was arrested. The trial and sentencing were looming. Yet the investigation wasn't over. It took just over 3 relentless months to gather every shred of evidence needed and finally bring this chilling case to trial. McKenzie now faced a staggering list of charges: premeditated, aggravated double murder, and more, possession and use of a controlled substance, which had been found in her pocket, and later confirmed in her blood. But McKenzie kept shifting her story again and again, first blaming a convenient lapse in memory. Then, when her friend testified in court, a friend who revealed Mackenzie's deadly plan. She switched tactics yet again, claiming she only wanted to die with her lover. But even that desperate lie fell apart when investigators exposed the truth. Because before the crash, Mackenzie had buckled herself safely in with a seatbelt. Then came August 21st, 2023, a date etched in stone. Shirilla was found guilty on all charges, yet there was a crucial twist in the verdict. At the time of the crime, she wasn't 18 yet, just 5 days short of her majority, so the court had no choice but to try her as a minor. And under state law, that meant one thing. She was entitled to 2 consecutive sentences, 15 years each for both murders, without parole. But because of her age, the court showed mercy, allowing the sentences to run together, making her eligible for parole in just 15 years. By then, Mackenzie will be 33 years old. Neither side accepted the decision quietly. Families of the victims were outraged, vowing to fight for a harsher punishment, while Mackenzie's parents and lawyers argued the opposite, filing an appeal to lighten the blow. But the judge stood firm and left the sentence unchanged, adding that he doubted Mackenzie would walk free in 15 years. In his view, she showed no hint of remorse. Not then, not now, not even in court. Instead, she behaved with arrogance and defiance, even showing flashes of outright insolence. But now, the judge said coldly, she will have more than enough time to think deeply about her monstrous crime. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to subscribe for more, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss another shocking story. New cases from around the world await. Until next time, stay safe, everyone. See you soon.